My name is Meredith Fischer. And at 33 I was still the person my family mentioned last, if at all. That particular dinner, my father skipped the build-up entirely. Just looked across the table and said, "You think differently than everyone else, and you actually believe that's a compliment." My brother laughed like it was the punchline he'd been waiting all evening to hear. My mother refilled her glass, and I sat there thinking, he's not entirely wrong. But what he meant as an insult was the only true thing he'd ever accidentally said about me, because the way I thought differently was already building something none of them could see yet. They just hadn't seen the receipts. The Fischer household had a ranking system nobody named but everybody enforced. My brother, valedictorian athlete, the son you mention at dinner parties. My sister, married, well, stable, put together. Me, footnote. But not because I failed spectacularly. Because I failed quietly, and in a family like mine that's somehow worse. I didn't crash out dramatically. I just pursued things they couldn't understand. Spent 3 years building a data infrastructure tool for small businesses, the kind of back-end software nobody sees but every modern company bleeds without. My father called it playing on computers. My brother called it avoiding real life. By the time I was 31, it was generating $340,000 a year. I hadn't told them. I was waiting for the right moment. What I didn't know yet is that the right moment was already being arranged by someone I hadn't even met. 14 months into dating Aisha, she said it plainly. "My father wants to meet you. This week." Not a suggestion. A schedule. Raymond Okafor wasn't famous in any way you'd Google. He was the kind of wealthy that doesn't need press, the kind that buys companies people have heard of and keeps his name completely off the announcement. When I walked into his office, he didn't stand, didn't extend a hand, just gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit." Then he asked me the question no one in my family had ever asked in 33 years. "What are you building? And why does it matter?" Not "what do you do?" Not "what are your intentions with my daughter?" "What are you building and why does it matter?" I answered honestly, technically, in detail. He didn't nod along. He pushed back hard on 3 separate points. And when I defended my position with data, when I didn't fold or soften to make him comfortable, something shifted in his expression. Not approval. Not warmth. Recalibration. I drove home that night not knowing if I'd passed or failed. Aisha texted me at 11 p.m. "He wants to see the financials." That told me everything. I won't romanticize what came next. Raymond's team went through everything. Every contract, every revenue line, every client relationship. And 3 weeks in, it almost collapsed. One of my anchor clients, a regional logistics company, filed a dispute right in the middle of due diligence. Bad timing. Ugly optics. The kind of thing that makes investors quietly close their folders. Raymond called me directly. No email. No assistant. "I'm hearing there's a client problem." "There is." "How bad?" "Bad enough that I haven't slept in 4 days. Not bad enough to lose." Silence. "What's your resolution?" "Already drafted. Client's reviewing it tonight. I'll send you a copy." Another silence. Longer. "Do that." He hung up. I sat in my car in the parking garage for 20 minutes after that call. Not crying. Not panicking. Just empty in the way you get when you've been running on adrenaline for so long your body forgets what calm feels like. I thought about quitting. Not the deal. The whole thing. Just walking away. Going back to being the footnote. It would have been easier. I didn't. I went back upstairs and finished the resolution document at 2 a.m. The client signed off by morning. Raymond never mentioned it again. But something changed in how he spoke to me after that. Less testing. More partnership. Through all of it, Aisha held something back. I could feel it in the pauses. The way she'd go quiet when I mentioned her father. The calls she'd take outside and come back from looking carefully neutral. One night I asked her directly, "What aren't you telling me?" She looked at me for a long moment. He almost pulled out. After the client dispute, he told me he'd seen 100 deals fall apart over less. What changed his mind? He said, she paused. He said you didn't make excuses. You just solved it. I didn't say anything. He also said something else, Aisha added quietly. He said he wished he'd had someone like you 20 years ago when he was building. I had to look away, because nobody had ever said anything like that to me. Not once. Not from anyone. And the fact that the first person to say it was a man who had every reason to be skeptical, that hit somewhere my family's approval never reached. 3 weeks later. Heavy cardstock. Raymond's annual industry event. Aisha handed it to me. You're on the program. As what? She just shook her head slightly. He said you'd understand when you got there. I didn't sleep well that week. Not from fear, from the specific dread of knowing something is about to become permanent. You can't unannounce something. You can't take back a reveal. Whatever was about to happen, I was going to have to live on the other side of it. What I didn't know yet. Aisha had quietly sent my family an invitation. Framed it as a business networking event. Didn't explain the rest. She didn't tell me until the morning of. I asked her why. She said, because you deserved witnesses. High ceilings. Controlled lighting. The specific quiet of a space where everyone present has already survived something. I found my seat. And then I saw them. My family. 3 rows back. My father in his best suit, scanning the room like he was trying to figure out why he'd been invited. My brother next to him, phone halfway out. My mother sitting very straight, the way she does when she's unsure of the dress code. My father spotted me. The frown arrived instantly. What is he doing here? I gave him one nod. Turned back toward the stage. The lights shifted. Raymond walked out. The room didn't applaud loudly, it just went still. The specific stillness of people who know they're in the presence of someone worth listening to. He opened with a question. How many of you almost missed something important because you trusted someone else's judgment over your own observation? Hands went up slowly, then more. I almost made that mistake, he said. I received second-hand information about a builder in this city. Young, quiet, no investors, no connections, no, as I later found out, family support. He paused deliberately. Someone had described him to me as unfocused. All potential, no follow-through. I nearly didn't take the meeting. The room was completely silent. I want to be very precise about something tonight. He looked out across the crowd, and then directly at me. In 26 years of doing this, I have sat across from a lot of smart people, a lot of capable people, a handful of genuinely exceptional ones. A beat. This young man is the most intellectually honest builder I have met in this decade. Not the loudest, not the most polished, the most honest about what he knows, what he doesn't, and what he's going to do about the gap. He let that land. If I had to put one person in a room with the hardest problem I've encountered this year, and trust them to come out with a real answer, he didn't look away from me. It would be him. The room reacted. Real reaction. The kind that doesn't need prompting. And I heard, distantly 2 rows back, my brother stop moving entirely. I didn't go to my family after the program. I needed 10 minutes outside first. Aisha joined me. She didn't say anything. Just stood next to me in the cold. After a while, your brother tried to introduce himself to my father. What happened? Dad shook his hand, then turned to talk to someone else. I looked at her. He didn't do it to be cruel, she said carefully. He just didn't have time for people who hadn't earned the conversation. A few minutes later, my father came outside. No audience. No performance. Just him, and the particular discomfort of a man who has run out of the thing he's always relied on. Certainty. He stood next to me for a long moment without speaking. Then he said something I genuinely did not expect. I think I owe you something I don't know how to give. I looked at him. His jaw was tight. Eyes forward. The body language of someone fighting their own pride in real time. Dad, I dismissed you, he said. Flat. No decoration. I knew what I was doing and I did it anyway because it was easier than understanding something I didn't recognize. Silence. That's not an apology, he said. An apology is too small for it. I just needed you to know I know. I didn't have a speech ready for that. Because I'd spent years preparing for his defensiveness. His justification. That I was only trying to help you version. Not this. Not a man in his 60s standing in a parking lot, telling the truth with nowhere to put it. I said the only thing I could. I know you know, Dad. And we stood there for a while. Not fixed, but different. The harder conversation happened 2 weeks later. My brother texted asking to meet for coffee. No occasion. No reason given. I almost declined. I went. We sat across from each other for about 4 minutes without saying anything meaningful, both doing the small talk shuffle. Then he put his cup down. Can I just say something and you don't respond defensively? Try me. I was jealous of you. He said it fast like ripping tape. Not after the event. Before. For years. I didn't move. You always had this thing. This way of caring about stuff in a way that didn't care what anyone thought. I never had that. I've been performing the golden child thing since I was 9 years old and I am exhausted by it. He laughed. But it was a real laugh. Tired. You built something real, he said. And I helped Dad make you feel small for it, because watching you do something genuine made me feel worse about everything I was doing for approval. I sat with that for a moment. I don't need you to forgive me right now, he said. I just needed to say it out loud to someone. I nodded slowly. Thank you for saying it. That was it. No dramatic reconciliation. No tearful hug. Just truth sitting in a coffee shop, finally taking up the space it deserved. I'm not going to wrap this in a bow. Life didn't become a highlight reel. But here's what specifically changed. The partnership with Raymond's firm opened 3 doors I couldn't have knocked on alone. One of them is still opening. I'll share details when I can. Aisha and I got engaged 7 months later. Small ceremony. Raymond's toast made half the room cry and the other half quietly reconsider their career choices. My father came to the engagement dinner. Sat in the front. Shook Raymond's hand. Didn't say much to anyone. But he showed up. And for a man whose primary language had always been absence, showing up was a full sentence. My brother is slowly figuring out who he actually is underneath the performance. That's his story to tell, not mine. And me? I still work the same way I always did. Early mornings. Hard problems. No announcement until there's something real to show. The only difference is, I no longer do it to prove something to people who weren't paying attention. I do it because it's who I actually am. Turns out that distinction changes everything about how the work feels. People will define you early, confidently, often incorrectly, and sometimes the loudest, most damaging definers sit at your own dinner table. Here's what I know now that I needed at 22. Stop explaining. Start executing. The moment you defend your vision to people who've already decided, you lose energy that belongs to the work. Being misunderstood by the wrong people is not a setback. It's protection. If they had understood what you were building, they would have found a way to shrink it. One person who sees you clearly is worth more than 100 who watch you perform. Raymond didn't give me confidence. He gave me confirmation of something I already knew but hadn't let myself fully trust. The goal was never revenge. Revenge keeps you in relationship with the pain. The goal was irrelevance, yours. Becoming so built, so focused, so undeniably real that their opinion becomes background noise you can barely tune into anymore. That's the finish line. Not the moment they're forced to clap. Not the moment they apologize. The moment you genuinely, completely stop needing either one. Because by then, you already won. And you probably won a while ago. You just kept building anyway.